For the next two panels, I have the privilege of handing the baton over to David Wachsman. David is a world-renowned blockchain expert, and he's a regular speaker at, literally the best events and things. But what he did is, in 2015, he founded this PR company. Okay, PR company. But it's become so important with the knowledge that they have that it's now one of the most important advisory firms to some of the most important projects in this space. I could list them all, but you'd probably know them all. And David and his team, which is now huge, I think, have been behind all of this. So, David, I'm going to let you introduce all of your panels, because I think you'll probably do a better job than I do. Please welcome David Wachsman.
We have some really exciting panels here, and sorry to trap you for the next hour or so, but I promise you it'll be a good investment of your time. Because we're talking about the future here. We've been talking about NFTs before, but we haven't been talking about probably what I think is the most exciting thing to happen in 2021. We saw the rise from nothing of a totally new category, a totally new industry that's actually changing people's lives materially. And we've got some of the world experts here to talk about what's called play to earn, or as some on the panel like to call it, play and earn. Well, what does that mean? Why should you care? What does this mean for investors? We're going to be exploring all of that in the next half an hour. So without further ado, I'd love for each of the panelists to introduce themselves. And as the panelists are well aware, I may interrupt them at any time just to go into further detail about some of the extraordinary things that they're accomplishing. So Sébastien, why don't we start with you?
All right, hi everyone, my name is Sébastien Borget. I'm the CEO and co-founder at the Sandbox, which is a gaming virtual world that enables players and creators to monetize their creation and assets using blockchain and NFTs. I'm also the president of the Blockchain and Game Alliance.
Excellent, and David?
David Namdar. I've met many of you already, and I was up here on stage earlier. I've been in the space for a long time, since 2012, 2013. Met David and many of the other speakers very early on. Currently, I'm the GP at a crypto fund, Coral Capital, and also the co-founder of NFT.com.
Excellent. And Andrew?
My name is Andrew Kessler. I'm CTO and co-founder of Zenotta AG. We're a company that try to understand layer 1 protocols and their relevance to NFTs and digital assets.
Excellent. So you can see a diversity of backgrounds here to talk about this important topic. So why don't we just start with definitions? It's usually helpful to do that. What the heck is play to earn gaming? Sébastien, you're well placed to talk about this. So tell us what this is and where it came from.
I would say the definition of play to earn gaming is pretty simple. It's almost in the semantic. It's essentially you as a player spending time into a game, participating into activities, and being able to derive a revenue stream from the outcome of this activity. Let's take a simple example. I have a sword, which is a game item. I kill enemies. I collect coins from killing those enemies. Those coins, actually being token, I can transfer them to other users. I can decide to sell them on an exchange. I can turn them and use them on the marketplace to buy new items, a better sword, and so on. This is, I think, a simple definition here, and yet it is so powerful because it's backed by technology, blockchain here, and NFTs, digital asset on the blockchain.
Okay, so let's make sure we understand this. I mean, for a long time, I could go into a video game, kill monsters, and get coins. I mean, I've seen this for a very long time, and then I could use those coins to buy new items within the game. That's not new. Why is this reliant on blockchain technology? What's the real difference here, and is it actually meaningful, David?
Yeah, so I guess the same way that a lot of the activities that we were doing online on the internet, right, whether it's messaging, taking part in different forums, going to websites, developing certain things out there, most of that was being done, and now more and more through centralized companies and systems, through the Googles, Amazons, Facebooks of the world. And so the same way that a lot of the innovation within the cryptocurrency space is driving us towards more decentralized versions of that, what blockchain gaming, play-to-earn gaming, all that is doing the same thing, but for the time we spend actually participating in different new ecosystems and worlds that are set up.
So people are actually making real money, Andrew, playing video games. Is this true?
Very much so. So you must look at the early sort of crypto ecosystem. Tokens that came out in sort of generation 1 offerings tended to be price-backed. What NFTs promise to do is to shift that to being value-backed. And so the same way I value a real property, there's no reason why I couldn't value an in-game property and add collectively to it. And so how do you support sort of infinite growth in a price-backed token offering? At some point, it kind of has to peter out. It kind of has to level off. But the promise of playing an in-game is I can keep adding more property, I can add value, I can be creative, and that is a source to representing real value.
Okay. So right now, there are these virtual worlds like the Sandbox that are being built, and people are playing on them. How many people exactly are playing on this, and where are they from?
So we've seen tremendous growth in Sandbox year to year with now over 1.6 million registered users with a wallet.
And how many did you have more or less a year ago?
Just 400,000, so over 1,000% increase. And more than half of these users have created a wallet for the first time thanks to Sandbox. We've shown that gaming has really that capacity to
So you're telling me these are not crypto nerds who are coming from the crypto forums, talking about coins. These are people who for the first time are downloading a wallet.
That's correct. And why is that? Is because Sandbox has taken the approach of like being a creation platform, tap into the user-generated content first. So before attracting people who are for a long time to crypto space, we've been attracting artists, creators, and beyond that, architects, fashion designers, and a whole lot of category of users, just like in the previous panel, what's been discussed, that are leveraging our tool to create experiences and monetize them into these virtual worlds.
Okay, so there's 1.6 million users, and I'm hearing there's actual architects and fashion designers who are in the Sandbox. What about users, regular users? You mentioned there's all these people popping up and grabbing wallets. How much money, and I'm using that expression, it can mean a lot of things. How much money are they making? Are you seeing life-transforming things occurring as people are playing what is in essence a video game?
Let's separate all the questions here. We have more than 18,000 landowners now. This is one category of users. They are owning virtual land property into the Sandbox. We have literally hundreds of thousands of creators in our community. Players, I'd like to say, depending on times, we have 0 or we have hundreds of thousands because we haven't yet fully opened everything. Last month, we ran our first alpha, which was open for 1 month, and our first taste of the metaverse and play to earn on the platform. How much people have been earning by being creators, participating into the creator economy in Sandbox? I have a rough idea from stories that our community has been telling us. We've seen some creators whose life have been totally transformed. They changed career. Some of them, they became entrepreneurs. They hired 1 person, 2 person today, just after 6 months.
So you mean they're building in-game, not companies, they're actually quitting their terrestrial jobs.
Quitting their job, or they lost their job during the pandemic. They found Sandbox as a creative platform. They found new skills, and they monetize those skills to the point now they run businesses. They hire 10, 20, for the largest, 40 people, becoming a business that serves those landowners to build the experience for the IP, for the brands, and for all the different actors in our ecosystem.
So, Andrew, in 2008, I'm piggybacking off of what you just said. In 2008, the financial crisis led to the creation of these Web 2 companies like Uber and Airbnb, where resources that already existed were basically able to be resold, and people could have new types of jobs. You could actually be a professional Airbnb host. You could be an Uber driver, and in fact, these are prevalent today. Do you see the possibility of being an in-virtual world entrepreneur as a real career? And is this one of those tectonic shifts that's occurring as a consequence of the pandemic?
That's a great, great question. I think Vitalik Buterin actually said it best, that this is the technology that makes models like Uber no longer relevant. And the reason is that Uber and Spotify tend to kind of squeeze a lot of the revenue from the content creator away. And this is a distributed market. So what makes it fundamentally different is it's peer-to-peer. And I'd just like to sort of break down a little bit some fundamentals in terms of how we think about these things as economic quantities. An NFT is not an NFT is not an NFT. So let's just look at 3 use cases very quickly.
Oh, okay, Andrew, I don't want to make this into a full-on lecture, so be quick.
So if we look at something like artwork, and it's coming from a new artist, how do you price that? It's to a large extent irrationally priced. But if you look at an in-game item, what makes markets rational is the presence of competition. And games are inherently competitive. So the pricing points and the pricing efficiencies we see in games lend them more to kind of real-world economics and thinking. It's a lot more tangible and physical. And so if I'm going to sort of quit my day job, I want to enter a market that sort of is akin to kind of like the property market. You might have been a property developer and made very well good revenue off that. But it's not equal opportunity. The real benefit of this technology being deployed for blockchain is it becomes equal opportunity. People that wouldn't be able to traditionally compete in a property market have a real shot at making revenue from play to earn.
And perhaps also in other countries, David, we've seen that some of the places where this is most prevalent, where in Axie Infinity, for those of you who are not aware, we've seen a huge explosion of users in places like the Philippines. Why, David?
Yeah, and so that's a really important thing for us to get into now, and for everyone here to pay attention to, in that it's very easy for us in Western Europe and developed parts of the world to miss out on how this is really changing kind of society. And so Axie Infinity, Sandbox, and a lot of these other games have really, in the emerging economies, they've now allowed a lot of people that hadn't been able to participate in the global economy, right, to participate in the first time. And so it's kind of been their back-end way into participating in the now global crypto economy. And so, it's happening in a way that we're sort of innovating and creating new business models. That's why we were discussing earlier, the difference between play to earn and play and earn. Whereas play to earn, we all kind of agree to an extent is, it's sort of unsustainable, that it's a constant race to get more and more users onto those platforms. And at a certain point, through competition, the users will get pulled to another platform, and that game and the game assets may not have the same value. With play and earn, there are going to be ways for companies and governments and economies to incentivize the users to participate in certain ecosystems and actually help contribute to the growth of them.
Okay, Sébastien?
I would like to add, it's really essentially becoming community-driven economics. And that changed everything. Rather than having the value being concentrated only on the platform or the game, the developer that provide the service, here all the value derives directly to the players or the creators.
Okay, so what? I want to make sure we understand what that means for a moment.
Sure.
There's two parts of this. Certainly, in these gaming societies that are essentially popping up where people are making money.
Call
there has
them
to be a
digital
community.
nations.
But beyond that, I think you were talking about where value accrual is going. Is that correct? So if before, these AAA gaming companies, which dwarf Hollywood, it's movies don't stand a candle. They're tiny in comparison to the vast light coming out of these gaming companies. But the money and the value is accruing to shareholders of Ubisoft, for example. You see value accruing differently in the play-to-earn gaming system.
Totally. A user who contributes in the game, either by creating or by playing, receive up to 100% of the value that he generates within that game, which is unprecedented. And that really enables new business model, enables empowering the user and creator. And no matter where they are in the world, Philippines is indeed a great place where things have been tested with Axie Infinity. But with Sandbox, we're seeing users from Canada, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Korea, US, Australia, highly developed economies who are actually earning more on their monthly salary by engaging and earning from their passion than actually, in the real world jobs.
No, okay, well, let's talk about some of the examples. What are some examples of businesses that can be built in these virtual worlds or in these play-to-earn games that are sustainable? Any examples, folks?
Plenty.
Please.
Rental.
Architects, fashion designers,
rental models,
virtual real estate brokers, rentals, artists, of course, interior designers, house designers. We're seeing also coaches, guilds, curators.
Okay, let's stop there. Right? That's pretty incredible. So there's many different types of careers that one can do, and one can conceivably do. If I'm a disabled person, I actually can work from home for the first time. If I'm a retired interior designer or I can't travel very often, or maybe I'm even an excellent one, but there's simply not a local market for me, I can access a global market where I can be doing interior design in these virtual realms?
Absolutely.
It's pretty astonishing.
If I can just add a point there, I think what we're excited to see in 2022-23 is the emergence. There's a lot of capital tied up in traditional markets. And this opportunity is that they could cobble onto this and they could create financial products and instruments to directly support and grow. Because these markets have pricing efficiency and they behave very well, we will see, I think, traditional financial institutions becoming more and more involved. And there we will see more mainstream adoption and growth of this industry.
Well, actually, David, go on.
Yeah, and just to time me, to kind of keep it relevant for people here. Look, for me, I hear these jobs and things, and I have a hard time too thinking, wow, I'm not going to do any of those things in this new gaming world and metaverse world. But at the same time, then I dial back and think about Uber. Like 10 years ago, nobody thought that people with their side jobs and eventually would become their main jobs in their free time would go and become an Uber driver. And all they're doing is really moving people, human capital, from one place to another. And so they started doing that, and that was something we, in the prior, multiple generations of human civilization, never thought that every person in the world could become a human people mover, right? And so now, you need to suspend disbelief a little bit and just really think about, we already spend 8-10 hours a day, some of us longer, attached to our screens. I see half the audience, attached to the screen. I have the same problem myself. And so we already live in the metaverse to some extent. We already live, synced into a digital world that's not native to the world around us. And so to start doing more functions and to kind of, one of the important themes is to be consuming less and creating and doing more inside. That's going to lead to a lot of the innovations that we're talking about.
You're really incentivized to do so. But
right.
David, actually, what I wanted to ask you about that's germane to this audience is, let's say these sustainable jobs pop up, and a lot of these sound like individual freelancer type jobs. What does an investor do here? I mean, okay, fine. So people are taking jobs, playing in these virtual worlds, creating in these virtual worlds in the Philippines. What does that mean to me, an investor? I mean, and you're someone who's been an investor at Galaxy, you're an investor, of course, today. What does this mean to investors?
I mean, I guess, and that's really like one of the important themes that we're paying attention to and investing in now today going forward, and play to earn, play and earn, all these different variations of it. I think in November, I didn't see the December numbers, but in November, I think 2.7 billion of VC dollars globally went into the cryptocurrency space, and half of that went towards play to earn gaming and some variation of it. And so, we're taking the approach of really looking for, Sébastien's been doing this now for a number of years from the last cycle. We're looking at entrepreneurs who've been doing this for a long time and really building out somewhat sustainable ecosystems and focused on continuing to provide value and attract users to their platform, and aren't just kind of capitalizing on the latest hype and selling into it.
David, just to follow on from there, I think it's important to realize that as these games mature, the in-game currency becomes more a debt settlement instrument. It becomes more like a fiat currency. And so as an investor, holding the token might not be the best way to leverage your position. You might want to become a real estate owner. You might want to stake some land, because there you can see sustainable growth if you, location.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So have we actually seen, we've got a perfect example, have we seen land value grow in some of these virtual worlds? Is that actually true?
Obviously, it's true. We have more than $300 million of GMV over a lifetime in virtual land sales in Sandbox, and we became one of the largest collection now on OpenSea. But beyond that, I think it's interesting to see why is digital land holding value? What does it enable? First of all, it's built on blockchain, where we have proof of ownership, digital scarcity, and we have asset of value that we have a number of people in this room included that, and beyond that, believe in the trust that this blockchain enabled to grant value to those lands. Now, that has enabled a whole digital economy built on asset on value, and virtual lands is one of the most easy to understand asset class, because you can understand the utility behind. I own a land, I can build experiences, I can build on my properties, and I can generate revenue. In the real world, you would create commerce, restaurants, shops, etc. In the metaverse, we can do the same, but we can do many more things like games, experience, virtual concert, virtual show, but we can do such at an incredibly much faster pace, rather than taking months or years to have real estate development project. It's just a matter of hours, maybe days at most. Anyone can do it from anywhere, and the audience can access it on a global scale. So that's what makes land valuable.
Add a very critical point. Sébastien has made an excellent point there, and I just want to elaborate on it. Provable scarcity. And that's why you need a blockchain. So you might look at a lot of these other sort of game environments. By building it on a blockchain, financial institutions or potential investors can look at things like provenance, they can look at provable scarcity, and they get that defined in a kind of a proof of work or proof of stake, back to whatever the consensus mechanism is way. They understand the risk far better, and they don't need to trust a developer.
That is helpful, Andrew. Seriously, it's true. There's no doubt. This can't really exist without a blockchain for those reasons. David, you were about to
so I was going to add, another thing just to bring it back and make it relevant for everyone is, some of the first NFTs and some of the first digital land that existed were internet domains. And so when those first came out, there were a lot of people had a hard time believing that those would be worth millions of dollars and now tens of millions of dollars. And the point is, shorter words, more scarce letters and characters ended up having significant value. That is very much akin to what's happening in a lot of these online worlds where, the location of these assets in relation to other landowners, in relation to other marquee places within the ecosystems, like all of that has different things that confer different value to it. The other thing is if you think about like the difference between .com, .co, .io, now today we're seeing users kind of, or entrepreneurs use all different forms of web and subdomains, but each of those are kind of akin to like what different metaverses are like.
Well, actually, that's exactly where I was going with this, which is let's say there's this land grab happening, and it's very similar to the gold rush of 1849 in California, right? Or the Alaskan gold rush later on. We've seen that before, but here's the big difference. There's only so much gold in the ground, whereas theoretically, a lot of companies could come up with one of these metaverses and let's call it play-to-earn gaming environments. And so this is my challenge or question to you all is, do you see the AAA companies, these huge gaming companies, these publicly held businesses with capital to spend, do you see them rushing in and building better lands quickly? Is that going to, if I'm an investor, if I'm buying up this land, am I going to see an immediate drop in value? Is it akin to a skyscraper going up in front of my apartment?
Well, that's where I'll start off just continuing on. I actually haven't gone through like an estimate here, but if I continue with the same internet domain example, right? Let's say the total aggregate, and this is just a total ballpark number, value of all .com domains in the world, 20 trillion, okay? The total value of .co, half a trillion. The total value of .xyz, now that Google, maybe Alphabet adopted it, maybe a couple hundred billion. And so as you go down the path, there's no digital scarcity there. We could have .xyz, .jpg, anything. And we have that. Each country has their own. And so there only are, we still attribute most of the value to .com and to the ones that we widely recognize are the ones that have the most value.
So incumbents have a chance to actually hold their value over time. In fact, perhaps they have an advantage.
Right.
And just to add a second dimension to this, that's looking at the very sort of economic nature of it. But remember that games that don't adapt a sort of a static loop in a game can become very boring and disengaging. It also lends itself to a kind of an attack surface. You could program a bot to perform a repetitive action to mine out an in-game currency, which will depress the price point for the entire
Right, we've seen this before in World of Warcraft and other things.
Yes.
But
so having a community from the blockchain who can directly engage and evolve and fit the emotional needs and wants of the community keeps it engaging for longer and thus preserves the value over longer periods of time.
So exactly. So people are building and creating new things. They're making the game and iterating all the time on Sandbox. Is that correct?
That's correct. And like it initially started as a blank slate, but now like as things are coming up, building up, audience are coming, and we're seeing more and more brands being aggregating into one or several specific decentralized virtual worlds. I think the barrier to entry to new entrants, whether they are big AAA companies or new entrepreneur in the space of virtual real estate, will become more difficult. It's not a matter of like creating new digitally scarce land. It's about like finding a place where users want to be right now. And there's such a few of them where users want to be because all the brands are there, all their favorite communities are there, all their friends will be there soon. And now that's the level of field that
So it's going to be a little bit like how, for example, Facebook was able to grow because people's, to your point, friends were already there. It was the social graph.
It's called the network effect, and the network effect has started to kick in Sandbox.
Okay. Well, and so do we think this is sustainable? I mean, 1.6 million is an unbelievably remarkable number and 1,000% growth. Can we see a similar trajectory for the industry this year?
I think definitely yes. 2022 is poised to be the year of NFT and gaming. Any size of game company entering the space will bring more users to be like curious and keen to discover. And there's such a few number of decentralized virtual world they can actually interact to that they will be drawn to it. Plus, we're adding a lot of value and utility to any community because we're an open metaverse where any NFT from any other game can come to life into another form, can become a way to access into certain land where we provide.
Can you give us a case,
lands.
like example? So like if I buy a Bored Ape.
Yes, typically, if I buy a Bored Ape, it's just a 2D flat image. You're proud of it. You maybe put it over your social media account, Twitter, to show that you
A little
own
bit
it.
cringe, but yes,
But
people do that.
that's it. Like, but you identify to him, or you make him your or her your identity. But that's it. In Sandbox, it can become a 3D playable character that can jump, run, kill enemies, fight, dance, chat with other users. It increases its utility, and I can connect with all the other members. I can build experiences by becoming the virtual neighbors around the land owned by the Bored Ape community. And through this additional utility, I will feel even more until that this avatar now becoming a 3D object is my identity. So I'm less entitled to sell it on the market. What happens when a certain number of digital assets that are scarce are not being sold?
Prices go up.
You said it.
Historically, anyway. Okay. David, what do you think? I mean, you're, again, an investor in the space. Have you been personally, or is your organization investing in play-to-earn gaming companies?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we've taken a multi-prong approach. We've invested in some of the bigger companies, the Animokas of the world. We've invested in Sandbox and some of the smaller companies, some of the new gaming companies coming along. And I think it's important to have like a healthy bit of skepticism, right? And not just chase into everything that we're hearing about today, because again, every traditional gaming company is now saying they're a play-to-earn gaming company. Everyone's pivoting their business models and trying to capitalize on the hype. And so, I think that's why I like to go with entrepreneurs who've been doing this for a long time and understand the nuances and what it takes to actually build something sustainable.
Okay, so with that in mind, actually, what's your criteria when you're looking through, a pitch beyond the founding team? Because many of these people in this room are investors. What should they be looking for that might make for a successful, play-to-earn game opportunity?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So valuation for one. Right now valuations have just run way too high. So I think we're seeing seed rounds of 100 million market
pre-money.
cap. Yeah, pre-money. And so that's something where it's a non-starter. And then really like more kind of innovative and sustainable business models where it's not just about saying, okay, well, we're going to do this raise and have a SAFT and eventually issue tokens on it, but that it's something where I can actually see people and gamers, whether it's in the broader developed worlds, whether it's developing worlds, actually be interested in using those and using it within the ecosystem.
And just to add two other concerns to think about, if there is a gambling-like mechanic within the game, this might be seen by certain regulators as unfavorable, and so just check the regulatory environment of the game space. And then finally, you want to also consider what I call the layer one technology supporting the game. If transaction fees are prohibitively high, or if there's the ability to do front running, there might be a disincentive for people to then have that high volume frequency trading of a particular
Which
item.
actually brings up a great question. Just you've been thinking a lot about scale. You guys have grown so much. Is the tech here for millions of people to be playing concurrently and posting on chain and doing smart contract interactions all the time?
I will add. I would like to add just one thing. Like, also look at where are the value accrual mechanism in the core loop or meta gameplay on those games. They claim to be play to earn, so you have to think how do you give value to your users and community first, and not for yourself. How are you different from the games and before? Back to your question. Well, I think Ethereum Layer 1 is being challenged in terms of scale at the moment, but that's the technology we've chosen to build upon 4 years ago for many reasons, ecosystem, developer, technology, and so on. Right now, we're in the process of migrating to a Layer 2 solution, which is a Polygon, and seems to be a bit more scalable so far, but still has its limit. Like 500,000 users signing up on a Polygon game in a day can actually crash the network. And we're already seeing it, not at Sandbox specifically, but some games have shown. Sandbox, we're growing roughly 300,000 users a week now. My goal is to reach 10 million users by the end of the year through the growth of our ecosystem, the brands, and so on. And we hope that blockchain will follow for the growth we're aiming for.
Well, let's hope, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to this extraordinary panel. Experts, thank you for your remarkable commentary. That's the end of our discussion.
Thanks.